Inside a 17th-century European boozing sanctum, the fusion of whispers and smoke tended to get mixed up with alarming toast noises and billiard balls and mugs clanking off instrumentals. Inside this scrappy establishment slumped a graying warhorse of a man, murk glazing his months-old stubble, fogging his vision and leaving him unabashedly staring into the void. "Old man, tell us a story," said a voice from the back of the room. The speaker was blind and bearded, and he spoke with a gravelly voice. Thus began the tale spinner. Now, the entire inn was silent, and all the townsfolk listened, even the babes in arms. Once upon a time, in a religiously divided Europe, the Treaty of Westphalia was never ratified. The 30 Years' War continued burning, and the foundations of empires began to crumble as its echoes still bounce off the walls of time. The conflict raged on, and the hopeful seeds of modernity that had been planted wilted away in the glaring sun of anarchy. Countries crumbled along the religious fault lines that presented themselves, the hope of a lasting unity between them obliterated in the swift, sharp motions of intolerance. There was no peace to guide the people of Europe through, and they found themselves lost in the tempest of war. The idea of the nation-state was not typical in this realm. Every day the borders of the country changed with the ambitions of each ruler, who wanted to add land to his or her name. The lack of the Treaty of Westphalia to bind the world together caused society to crumble together, so everyone was out for themselves. On the other hand, across the Atlantic in the New World that was on the verge of being discovered, it was anything but the Golden Age, as Europe was amid endless wars, which caused for the voyages of exploration to take an abrupt halt. Ultimately, their outcome would have a negative effect. Finally, the promise of new horizons was so close and within reach for the Europeans. In the power halls, bureaucrats and politicians grappled with uncertainty, as their efforts to bring peace to the land was undermined by the reluctance to cooperate by warring sides. Without the establishment of Westphalia, diplomacy would seem to be a vain pursuit, as closed doors and a lack of unity hushed every discussion. Nevertheless, faint hope yet supported the hearts of many good-natured men and women weighed down with the miseries of war, who, with an overgrown spleen, did greedily, to their heart's content, pant after something greater than themselves to accommodate their jarring and wounded humors. At length, there peeped out some talkers who called aloud for an end of all hostilities and a return to a more benevolent and peaceable life, which some partial men will term foreigners. Somehow, miraculously, hope emerged from the deep cauldron of people trying to put themselves whole again after brutal fighting of their neighbors and friends. Against all odds, there grew a movement, a loud demand for a more peaceful world. It started with a faint murmur of togetherness amidst civil wars. It has grown from a summation of voices in the broken streets of shattered cities. It has dug its way into the most modern and fancy halls of power. The yet quiet melody has even made it onto the news. In a momentous turn of events, all weapons were ceased upon the lands as the people are at a fierce and relentless struggle. The harmful shrills from metal weapons were eradicated. Knights and other fighters ceased their participation in any activity related to war as they set down their hard work-filled weapons. Everything was so quiet. Then, all of a sudden, the flags filled with height on the trees, but as the people stopped fighting, the flags slowly glided lower, going down to the pitch-black place. After that, everything was so quiet, which meant a whole new beginning. After Westphalia finally found peace, Europe was able to come out of the misery of battle. After the war, people had a chance to rebuild all that was lost, and great things were spoken of from famous scholars and thinkers. The war brought the age of new ideas in Europe. After the war was over, the idea of the war surfaced into Europe and affected the history to follow. Lest we forget the maypole dancing on the village green, this is a memory of mine, but I might just have invented the picture. But I think not. Rather, it is because of images of maypole dancing or the simple fact of the tradition that I picture it. In the tapestry of time, the threads, it seems to me, are interwoven so that places and people can become obsessed with the wrong memories or details.